बस में ली. Okay, thank you. Thank you so very much. May I start, sir?
Yes, of course.
Let's start. Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to this post-monetary policy conference, press conference, second in this financial year. Friends, today we have with us Governor Shri Sanjay Malhotra, Deputy Governors Shri M. Rajeshwar Rao, Shri T. Ravi Shankar, Shri Swaminathan J. and Dr. Poonam Gupta. I would take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Gupta to this press conference after taking charge as the Deputy Governor. We also have with us Executive Directors, Dr. Rajiv Ranjan and Dr. Ajit Joshi, and other friends from Reserve Bank. Before we begin, I'll request all of you to please either switch off your mobile phones or keep it on silent. Please restrict to one question per person so that everybody gets a chance. And then maybe going forward, we can take another question if time permits. And when you are asking question, please see that you switch on the mic which is in front of you. Because that's how, the people listening to this transmission would be able to hear whatever is transpiring here. And once you are done, please switch it off to avoid the interference. Sir, there are 23 participants from media today. And with your permission, I'll call out the names. I'll ask Lata to ask her question.
Thank you, sir. Lata from CNBC TV 18. Governor, thank you very much for the opportunity and for a policy that is giving us a lot of headlines. Okay, I wanted you to clarify things on the liquidity front. In the last few weeks, the repo rate, the call rate was not at the repo rate. You gave enough liquidity and the call rate was 25 basis points below the repo rate. Now that you have given a 50 basis cut, will you use liquidity in such a way to align the call rate more to the repo rate, which means you will do more VRRs, reverse repos, or will the reverse repo have to be suspended because your 40 billion short positions have to be, will mature? So if you can give us a little more color on liquidity, and on the stands itself, is it fair on the part of the market to assume an extended pause, or because the positive real rate, I mean, if you assume that that 1.4 to 1.9 positive real rate is what you are also going by, then with inflation at 3.7, you still have space to cut. So should the market assume that the terminal rate can still go down after the pause?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, all of you, for coming here as usual and taking our message to everyone across the country. So thank you very much. You have asked 3 questions in 1 question. But we'll try to attempt to answer all of them. So first question is a very good question. In fact, what do we do with liquidity? Where do we actually maintain now the call rate? The call rate today is hovering at the lower end of the LAF as it was till yesterday. So it was at about 5.75%. Whether we now maintain it at 5.25 or at the policy rate, which is at 5.5. That's, as I said, we'll see how the situation goes. Of course, liquidity is abundant, and if we do not do any VRRs, then it's going to stay at 5.25. If we do VRRs, then, we can bring it anywhere between, depending on the amount. So we'll see, how the situation evolves, and we'll take a call. We have not really given it a thought on that. So we will decide, and you will come to know, in the coming few days. I'll not be able to give you a very precise answer. But having the policy at 5.5, and the stance, now going to neutral, so all that will, certainly come in the picture. We will take a call as to where, we will try to have the call rate. The second question is on where do we see the terminal rate The MPC, I think, has very clearly, articulated that in the statement in the resolution that has come in. We have changed the stance from accommodative to neutral. And it has mentioned that there is now very limited space for the monetary policy, actually, given the current circumstances. And you are aware of the current circumstances, which is that growth is at about 6.5%. Inflation, we are projecting at 3.7% for this year. And next year, it's above 4, it's 4.5%, or roundabout. So given these current, if these were to play out, there is very limited space, is what MPC says, and that's why it has been reduced now. We have changed now to neutral. MPC also states that we will continue to monitor the incoming data, and basis that, given especially the uncertainties, what way now we will move will depend primarily on what the data suggests to us. There was a third question, which what was your? That's it. Thank you. So I've answered.
That's what I wanted. Yeah.
Thanks.
If you can allow me another question, I will.
Yeah, we'll come back
later.
We'll come back and see if there is time.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll have Mr. Mayur Shetty from Times of India.
Governor, you spoke about the uncertain environment, and a lot of uncertainty is coming from the behavior of the US administration, and that is also resulting in a lot of volatility in dollar assets. So given this, how would you balance between rebuilding the forex reserves and managing exchange rate volatility?
See, our policy over there is very, very clear. It has been very consistent. And we do not manage, or try to target any price, any level, any band. You are aware of that. If there is any abnormal, that's a standard response, right? Any abnormal volatility, if it is there, that is what we try to counter, and we let the market prices be determined, prices be determined by the markets. Now, this question, and I think that was something that even Lata alluded to, and that was the third point, I think, that you mentioned.
The 40 billion.
Is, this 40 billion, etc. We are not unduly concerned about that. Even if you were to exclude that $625 billion, if you were to exclude this $65 billion, including, the one after 1 year that is coming in, we are not unduly worried, on that. It's a very, very comfortable level to be in. Yes, if there are opportunities and we can build reserves, that will happen. But that is not something which we will be unduly bothered about. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. अब मैं श्री अनुराग शाह से आग्रह करूंगा कि वो अपना प्रश्न पूछें. अनुराग शाह, ET 9 स्वदेश से.
थैंक यू सर. थैंक यू सर. जो सर ने इतने बड़ा धमाका कर दिया, सबको चौंका दिया, जो मेन प्रश्न लेके आया था सर, वो भी पूछूंगा साइड में. सर ये आज के जो ऐलान से क्या बड़ा मकसद है और क्या संदेश आप देना चाहते हैं ब्रॉडर रूप में?
नहीं, ब्रॉडर रूप में देखो, संदेश हमारा यही है कि इन्फ्लेशन, आपको मालूम है, मुद्रास्फीति इन्फ्लेशन पे अब काफ़ी जो है नियंत्रण में है, और वो जंग जो है हम ये मान सकते हैं कि उसके ऊपर में हमने जीत हासिल कर ली है. एक मैसेज है, क्योंकि हमने 4% से उसको घटा करके जो हमारा अनुमान था उसको 3.7% किया है मुद्रास्फीति को. उसी प्रकार से जो ग्रोथ है वो 6.5% है, अच्छी है, लेकिन उसमें और गुंजाइश है उसके अंदर में और बढ़ोतरी होने का. तो जो भी हमें कार्य करना है, हम ये बिलीव करते हैं कि वो डिसाइसिवली करना चाहिए, सही समय पे करना चाहिए, और एक जो निश्चितता है, इस अनिश्चित वातावरण में निश्चितता मेरे ख्याल से जो है हमें मार्केट्स को, सभी को, बैंक्स को, इकोनॉमी को निश्चितता देने का बहुत अधिक ज़रूरत थी. इसी वजह से ये जो आपने देखा कि एमपीसी ने कहा कि हमने फ्रंट लोड किया है, ताकि एक ये निश्चितता रहे कि हाँ 50% हमें बेसिस पॉइंट्स कम करना है तो एक साथ ही उसको कर दिया। उसी प्रकार से जो CRR का है, हम चाहते तो हम इसको 4 महीने बाद भी अनाउंस कर सकते थे, हमने आज ही अनाउंस कर दिया पहले से ही, ताकि लोगों को, बैंक्स को ये निश्चित हो जाए कि लिक्विडिटी, जो कि हमने कहा ज़रूर है लेकिन वो एक्शंस में भी तब्दील होना चाहिए, तो वो एक्शंस में हमने अपने तब्दील किया कि जो CRR है वो एक हमने उसको आज ही घोषणा कर दी। तो निश्चितता जो है जितनी होगी उतना हमें लगता है कि उससे हमारी जो अर्थव्यवस्था है उसको बल मिलेगा, और यही हमारा संदेश है कि हमारी अर्थव्यवस्था अच्छी चल रही है, और उस अर्थव्यवस्था को दोनों मुद्रास्फीति को ध्यान में रखते हुए, वो हमारा प्रमुख संदेश है, उससे हम बिल्कुल नहीं भटकेंगे। वो हमारा प्रमुख प्राइमरी हमारा जो मोटिव है कि प्राइस स्टेबिलिटी, मुद्रास्फीति को हम कंट्रोल करें, उसके ऊपर में हम अंकुश लगाएं, और जो हमारे को टारगेट दिया है उस टारगेट की ओर हम उसको ले जाएं। जब वो हो जाए तो उसके बाद में हम जो ग्रोथ है, ग्रोथ के ऊपर भी हम ध्यान दें, वही हमने इसमें किया।
जो स्टांस आपने चेंज किया सर, पिछली पॉलिसी में ही आप न्यूट्रल से अकोमोडेटिव आए थे और इस बार वापस एक ही पॉलिसी में आप वापस उस स्टांस पे चले गए, तो उससे कहीं एक मैसेज गलत नहीं जाएगा?
गलत मैसेज से मैं नहीं समझा। हाँ, ये बात आप ज़रूर कह सकते हैं, ये बात हमारे भी दिमाग में थी कि हमने पिछले बार ही तो इसको एकोमोडेटिव किया था। हमारे पास में चॉइस ये था कि हम उसको अकोमोडेटिव रखते, जो हमने बोला था, जो मैंने आपको कहा कि बोलते रहें कि अकोमोडेटिव है लेकिन करें नहीं कुछ, तो एक्शन जो है वो ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है, और जो भी हम बात कर रहे हैं वो एक्शन में तब्दील होना चाहिए। इसीलिए जो है हमने उन हमारे जो स्टेटमेंट्स रहे इंटेंट के, अकोमोडेटिव केवल एक इंटेंट था, उसको हम अकोमोडेटिव रखते रखते नहीं चेंज करते, अकोमोडेटिव ही रखते, तो क्या वो बेहतर रहता, या हम सर्टेनिटी दें कि हाँ हमने अकोमोडेटिव से जो हमने आपको वादा किया था कि हम इसको रेट को कम करेंगे, डिसाइसिवली कम करेंगे, वो हमने किया, और स्टांस को हमने न्यूट्रल कर दिया है। आज के सर्कमस्टांसेस में जो स्थिति बनती है उसके हिसाब से बहुत कम गुंजाइश, जैसा कि MPC ने नोट किया कि उससे बहुत कम गुंजाइश अब रह जाती है, वेरी लिमिटेड स्पेस, उन्होंने कहा वेरी लिमिटेड स्पेस, तो कम गुंजाइश रह जाती है आगे और पॉलिसी रेट्स को कम करने की। ये एक पूरा संदेश हम दें, इसीलिए उसको न्यूट्रल में किया गया है।
धन्यवाद सर। Moving to this side of the table, Mr. Manojit Shah from Business Standard.
Sir, good afternoon. Thank you, Puneet ji. Again on this stance, I mean,
Thank you.
this policy has several surprises. The most surprising part is the stance. As you said in the last policy, the accommodative means the rate can go down or it can stay there. So in that, so neutral would mean the rates can go up. Are you saying rate will not go up, but there will be a long pause? And whether there is a voting on stance, if you can.
It will depend. See, it will depend on data now. This is what neutral means. We had explained it in our earlier MPC. I had explained it in the earlier MPC statement that neutral will mean that it can go either ways. It will depend on how the data comes in. If the growth is weaker, it can mean that it will go down. If the growth is good, inflation is going up, it can mean that, the repo rate policy rate can go up. So it will depend on how the data, both, on inflation as well as growth, turns out to be.
Was there voting on stance this time?
Stance, we have already mentioned that there is no, the statute does not, mandate a voting. There was a discussion on it. Certainly, because we need to give a sense, we need to give a guidance. It's more of a guidance that we have to give to the market participants. And so there was a discussion, and everyone, all the 6 MPC members were of the view that we should change it to neutral. So there was no voting, but the view of all the MPC members is that going forward, the stance should be changed from accommodative to neutral.
Also, if you can add just one more, are you satisfied with the monetary transmission that has happened so far?
I think it has, going by past trends, the transmission has happened much faster, both on, in the money markets, in fact, you can see a huge transmission, more than what we have done, more than 50 basis points in the money markets at the shorter, especially, at the shorter term levels. And on the credit side also, we are now seeing some initial signs. Deposit rates, in fact, have been reduced, retail as well as wholesale, by most of the banks, about 40 basis points, they have reduced. The average, of course, is about 27 basis points. It has reduced over there. 17 basis points is the reduction on the credit side, on the outstanding credit. And in terms of fresh loans, there is, that's a little slow, but it has started. It is about 6 basis points as per data that we have. So that's slow, but it is much faster than other times. Normally, it takes 6 to 9 months. It's only been 4 months from the first policy cut. So from first policy cut, or 25 basis points, against that, if 27 basis points on deposit side, 17 basis points on the credit outstanding side, and 6 basis points on the fresh loans, I think this is a very good transmission. However, we need to do it faster. And that's why, we have front-loaded some of our actions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll have Mr. Vishwanath Nair from NDTV Profit.
Good afternoon, Governor. Couple of questions, actually. The first one with respect to your GDP forecast, which has not changed. The estimates have not changed at all. What is the growth boost that you're expecting from this cumulative 100 basis point rate cut that you've afforded? And thereby, would there be a revision for FY26? And the second part is on the stance itself. I'm asking you again, in the past there has been criticism that the stance is more or less becoming meaningless because we kept saying withdrawal of accommodation, but it was a prolonged pause. Is this a way to then bringing it back into relevance?
So your first question is what impact it has on growth. Obviously, it has a positive impact. It will be very difficult to assess as to how this transmission from monetary policy to the credit rates and then to the real economy, how that transmission happens. As you are aware, it takes minimum of, going by history, 6 to 9 months. We would like, of course, to expedite it, but we'll see impact of this only in the later half. So for this year, in terms of numbers, especially when there is so much of an uncertainty, we would not be in any position to give you how it will, to what extent it will impact the GDP numbers. Your second question is on, I can't actually speak about the past, what has happened, but our policy will be very, very clear. Whatever we are saying, we mean it, every bit of it, and you will continue to experience that.
Thank you, sir. Next is Ms. Swati Bhatt from
also
the
to be kept in mind is, whether it is past or present or future, a lot of it is dependent on data. So if the data kind of changes, even if it is, say, accommodative or tightening, it does not necessarily mean, that next policy itself, you are going to tighten it or you are going to reduce the policy rate. It does not mean that. It depends on how the data is actually coming in, and how, what that data is showing. So if that data demands that you have to actually stay put, even if it is accommodative, it will, that's how, it will be done.
Thank you, sir. Next will be Swati Bhatt from Reuters.
Thank you, Puneet, sir. Sir, I just wanted to understand, you have front-loaded the rate cuts and the certainty obviously helps. But we've seen that despite the massive surplus liquidity that has been there in the market, there is very limited scope to lend because there is genuine lack of demand from companies and corporates. There's not much capex happening as well. How does this liquidity really translate to boosting growth? What is the advantage of having so much flush of liquidity in the banking system? Similarly, on the CRR front as well, obviously you planned it in advance and announced it now. But CRR historically has been at the 4% sacrosanct level to some extent. Is there a renewed thinking on the CRR front, which is why you've gone ahead and cut it to 3%? Thank you.
Can I just add, nowhere you have told us why you cut the CRR. What was the RBI's thinking?
So let me take the second question first. I think the monetary policy statement that I read out, it did mention that it has two objectives. The first objective is that we need to, continue to provide liquidity, and I'll come to your first question relating to liquidity. And then we also mentioned that it will not only improve liquidity, but it will also help reduce cost of funding for the banks. So that is the other objective. And see, over the years, last 12, 13 years data I've seen, and one can even go back, the CRR has mostly remained at 4%, as you have rightly pointed out. During COVID, we reduced it by 1%. Now these reserves are basically kept for liquidity management. So the experience as of now does not suggest that perhaps, we do not need 4%. 3% can perhaps suffice. Having said that, we do not know what the future holds. So please don't hold me, to this number that, we are going to maintain this 3%. But as of now, it seems that 3% is a comfortable reserve ratio to have. And so from a liquidity management perspective, and so that's why, apart from providing liquidity, it will also reduce their costs and improve their NIMs by about 7 basis points, at least it should help, is our estimate. Why do we provide liquidity? So that, there is a better transmission, there is a faster transmission, and it is primarily, it's basically for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Take the next question.
Yeah, because so far banks are not lending. So how does that demand come in?
It will depend. We have said, even in the statement that this is not a sufficient condition. Monetary policy is not a sufficient condition. It is a necessary condition. We have provided that. We are confident that it will certainly translate into better credit growth. I am not able to give you a number. Obviously and certainly, with confidence, one can say that it will certainly increase, the flow of credit. And so that's why, this liquidity is important. A reduction in repo rate is important. To what extent and what time frame it will take, that will be difficult to say.
Thank you, sir. Next will be Mr. Ankur Mishra from ET Now.
Thank you, Puneet sir. Good afternoon, Governor. I want to understand from you that you have given a statement in the monetary policy that today's steps should be seen towards propelling to a higher aspirational trajectory. You're talking about growth. You have kept your target intact at 6.5%. Is there a scope of further revision ahead which should be expected with the kind of actions you have taken? And also, I will once again ask on the stance front, but in a cricket analogy, if you can explain, it was a roller coaster kind of a policy. We saw you announced 20, expectation was 25 basis point, you announced 50 basis point cut. Similarly for CRR, the expectation was 50, you announced 100. But on the stance front, you got back to the crease and said, I'll wait and watch. So how should one understand?
Well put. The target, you are saying that the target, the 6.5% is not the target, 6.5% is the forecast that we have made.
Sorry.
And the aspiration is certainly much more, between 7 and 8%, is our aspiration. Aspiration is 8%. We would like to grow, as fast as possible. You have said it all, I don't have to say anything more, on, you have put it out very well. As to what, this monetary policy, because everyone here in India, they may not understand our monetary policy, but they will understand the cricket lingo. So you put it out very well for your viewers.
Thank you, sir. अब मैं जी बिजनेस से एकता सूरी को आमंत्रित करूंगा.
Policy has been very well received by the markets. However, I want to ask questions which are a little different from the market how they've received it. So मेरा पहला सवाल होगा, पिछली पॉलिसी में हमने गोल्ड लोन्स के ड्राफ्ट के ऊपर बात की थी. उस पॉलिसी से लेकर अब आज की पॉलिसी में आपने कुछ चेंजेस सोचे हैं? क्योंकि बहुत से लोगों को ऐसा भी लगता है कि अगर सोना हम गिरवी रखने जा रहे हैं तो हो सकता है हमारे पास ओनरशिप का कुछ प्रूफ ना हो, क्योंकि वो हमें अपनी मदर या किसी और से मिला हो, या फिर हॉलमार्क ना हो. तो ऐसे जो ट्वीक्स हैं आप सोच रहे हैं नियमों में बदलाव? और दूसरा ये भी, क्योंकि अब हम देख रहे हैं कि फॉरेन बैंक्स की बहुत दिलचस्पी है भारतीय बैंक्स में, तो आप FIIs को लेकर भी कुछ नियमों में बदलाव सोच रहे हैं? 26% का जो वोटिंग राइट है वो भले ही सरकार के पास है, या फिर फॉरेन बैंक कितना स्टेक ले सकते हैं भारतीय बैंक में?
अच्छा, आपने सवाल किया है जो गोल्ड लोन के बारे में, ये भी काफ़ी चर्चा में रहा है. मुझे लगता है कि ये सभी के लिए एक रुचि का विषय होगा. तो इस पे निश्चित रूप से आपका सवाल जो है बनता है. और मैं आपको बताना चाहूँगा सबसे पहले कि जो गोल्ड लोन के बारे में जो हमने रेगुलेशंस जारी किए थे वो केवल ड्राफ्ट थे, मसौदा थे, वो फाइनल नहीं थे. आपको ये भी बताना चाहूँगा कि हमने अब एक फ्रेमवर्क रेगुलेशन मेकिंग के लिए हमने एक जारी किया है, जो सबको हमने पब्लिक नोटिस के थ्रू हमने सबको बताया है कि कोई भी मेजर, जब भी हम कोई परिपत्र या रेगुलेशन या डायरेक्शन इशू करेंगे तो उससे पहले हम दो चीज़ें करेंगे. एक चीज़ हम कंसल्टेशन करेंगे, दूसरा हम उसका क्या इम्पैक्ट है उसका हम स्टडी करेंगे. तो उसी को ध्यान में रखते हुए ये भी हमने मसौदा गोल्ड लोन के बारे में हमने जारी किया. दूसरी चीज़ बताना चाहूँगा कि ये जो हमने जारी किया है इसमें कोई नयापन नहीं था, इसमें कोई नई चीज़ नहीं थी, ये केवल कोई नई बात नहीं थी. पुराने जो हमारे परिपत्र थे, पुराने जो रेगुलेशंस थे, उन्हीं को हमने कंसोलिडेट किया था, उनको कंसोलिडेट किया था और उनको रिआइटरेट किया था. क्योंकि ऐसा देखा जा रहा था कि कुछ जो हमारे रेगुलेटेड एंटिटीज़ हैं उनको वो अक्षरतः पालना नहीं कर रहे थे, क्योंकि उसमें क्लैरिटी नहीं थी और इसके बारे में उनको बताया गया था. इस कारण से इसमें कोई नयापन हालांकि नहीं था, लेकिन फिर भी जब वो बात बिल्कुल ब्लैक एंड वाइट में सामने आ गई तो इसलिए उसके ऊपर में हमारे पास में उसके कमेंट्स आए. तो मेरे ख्याल से आज ही हम जो है उसका फाइनल जो रेगुलेशन है, फाइनल डायरेक्शन है, आज नहीं तो एट द मोस्ट मंडे, सोमवार तक हम उसको जारी कर देंगे. आपने जो बात कही ओनरशिप के डॉक्यूमेंट्स के बारे में, वो जो हमने ड्राफ्ट जो इशू किया था उसमें भी ये बिल्कुल क्लियर लिखा हुआ है कि अगर आपके पास में उसके इनवॉइस नहीं है तो आप उसका एक सेल्फ डिक्लेरेशन आप दे सकते हैं. तो उसमें कोई चिंता की बात नहीं थी, उसको और हम उसमें और क्लैरिटी हम प्रोवाइड करेंगे. दूसरा ये एक बात आई कि क्रेडिट अप्रेजल, अब छोटे छोटे लोन के लिए क्रेडिट अप्रेजल नहीं किया जाए, तो वो भी हम इसमें डाल रहे हैं कि छोटे जो लोन्स हैं 2.5 लाख रुपए तक के जो लोन्स हैं उसमें गोल्ड से जो जिसमें कोलेट्रल आ जाता है उसमें क्रेडिट अप्रेजल की आवश्यकता नहीं है. तीसरा एक एंड यूज़ के ऊपर में बात आई थी कि एंड यूज़ की मॉनिटरिंग करनी है. उसमें भी हमने ये स्पष्ट किया है कि एंड यूज़ की मॉनिटरिंग तभी आवश्यक होगी जब आप उसका प्रायोरिटी सेक्टर लेंडिंग में उसका लाभ आप लेना चाहते हैं. चौथा और पांचवा जो कि महत्वपूर्ण प्रश्न LTV के संदर्भ में है, वो हमने कहा है कि LTV केवल जो कंजम्पशन लोन्स हैं उसमें ही, कंजम्पशन लोन्स में ही LTV का सिद्धांत लागू रहेगा. बाकी में आप क्रेडिट अप्रेजल करेंगे, उसकी और अन्य इनकम्स हैं और सिक्योरिटीज़ हैं, उसके हिसाब से अगर LTV रेशियो से ज़्यादा भी देते हैं तो वो रीपेमेंट कैपेसिटी के बेसिस के ऊपर में उसका आंकलन करके वो दिया जा सकता है. और पांचवा और महत्वपूर्ण जो प्रश्न है LTV से ही संबंधित है कि वो 75% हमने उसमें अभी आज के दिन में हमने ड्राफ्ट डाला था, उस 75% को हम छोटे लोन्स के लिए 85% तक करने का हमारा प्रस्ताव है। 85% छोटे लोन्स के लिए, बिलो 2.5 लाख के लोन्स के लिए पर बोरोवर 85%, लेकिन इस 85% में इंटरेस्ट जो है वो भी इंक्लूड करना होगा। तो पहले वो केवल हमारा 75% था और प्रिंसिपल एंड इंटरेस्ट का ही था, जो कि कुछ कंपनियां, पब्लिक सेक्टर बैंक्स जो हैं, अधिकतर सभी पब्लिक सेक्टर बैंक्स 75% पे ही दे रहे थे, इंक्लूडिंग इंटरेस्ट प्रिंसिपल। इसलिए वो प्रिंसिपल जो है केवल 65, 66, 67% तक ही दे रहे थे। लेकिन कुछ अन्य NBFC इत्यादि और कुछ छोटे बैंक भी हो सकता है, वो जो है 75% प्रिंसिपल दे रहे थे, तो इंटरेस्ट मिला करके बुलेट रिपेमेंट लोन में विशेषकर वो 88% तक भी चला जाता है, क्योंकि अगर 18% का लोन है तो आप रिवर्स कैलकुलेट करोगे तो वो 88% तक चला जाता है। तो छोटे लोन्स 2.5 लाख रुपए तक के लोन के लिए इंक्लूडिंग इंटरेस्ट 2.5 लाख प्रिंसिपल प्लस इंटरेस्ट। तो ये पूरी स्पष्टता जो है हम अपने सर्कुलर में देंगे। हमें उम्मीद है कि इससे जहाँ पे मिनिमम रिस्क के साथ में इस गोल्ड लोन की श्रेणी को हम अच्छे से रेगुलेट कर सकते हैं। दूसरा आपका प्रश्न है कि क्या हम FIIs वगैरह के लिए हम कुछ लिमिट्स वगैरह, फॉरेन बैंक्स वगैरह के लिए लिमिट्स वगैरह कुछ बढ़ा रहे हैं। तो देखिए, ऑलरेडी लिमिट्स तो 74% की लिमिट है, ऑलरेडी 49% की लिमिट है ऑन ऑटोमेटिक अप्रूवल रूट, एंड अनदर 25% तो अप टू 74% गवर्नमेंट अप्रूवल रूट में जा सकते हैं। तो उसमें तो कोई बदलाव की आज के दिन में कोई ऐसी कोई बात नहीं है, उसमें कोई चेंजेस मुझे नहीं मालूम ये प्रश्न कहाँ से आ रहा है कि उसको हम चेंज कर रहे हैं। एक दूसरा उससे जुड़ा हुआ है, 15% हम अलाउ करते हैं नॉन रेजिडेंट्स के लिए, लेकिन केस टू केस बेसिस पे 15% से ऊपर भी वो जा सकता है। तो उसमें कोई ऐसा बदलाव अभी अतिशीघ्र कोई भी बदलाव उसमें नहीं हो रहा है। हाँ, हमने ये इस बात ज़रूर कही है कि हो सकता है उसका आप लोगों ने उसको आपने देखा हो, कहीं पे पढ़ा हो, कि हम ये पूरा जो ओनरशिप स्ट्रक्चर है, जो एलिजिबिलिटी कंडीशंस हैं, जिसके अंदर में FFI नॉन रेजिडेंट्स के लिए आज के दिन में 15% है, उस सबको हमको पूरे को एग्जामिन हम कर रहे हैं। वो इमीडिएटली नहीं होगा, उसमें समय लगेगा। ये जो है बहुत डीपर क्वेश्चंस हैं जिनको क्रिकेट की एनालॉजी में जो है 2020 मैच की तरह से नहीं देखना चाहिए। तो वो हम उसको पूरा सोच समझ करके ही क्या हमारे अर्थव्यवस्था के लिए क्या उचित है उसको ध्यान में रखते हुए, क्योंकि बैंक्स में देखिए एक आम साधारण आदमी ट्रस्ट करता है बैंक के ऊपर में, जैसा मैंने एक जगह पे इंटरव्यू में कहा कि ट्रस्ट हिज मनी विद द बैंक्स। तो उस प्रकार का ट्रस्ट वर्दी आदमी, ओनर और मैनेजर बैंक में होना ज़रूरी है। उसके लिए हम किस प्रकार की एलिजिबिलिटी क्राइटेरिया रखें, किस प्रकार की कंडीशंस रखें, उसके लिए सबसे बात करके और उसको निश्चित रूप से हमारी इकोनॉमी ग्रो कर रही है, अर्थव्यवस्था हमारी बढ़ रही है, तो उसमें हमें और अधिक बैंक्स की आवश्यकता है, और उसको ध्यान में रखते हुए जो भी उसमें यदि कोई बदलाव की आवश्यकता होगी तो उसमें बदलाव किए जाएंगे।
धन्यवाद सर। Now I'll request Ms. Sangeeta Mehta from Economic Times to ask her question.
Most of my monetary policy questions are taken away. So I'm going back to the annual report, which was very insightful. It had a lot of data points also. There's one question on the one thing about the annual report where you have said that in FY 25-26, RBI would be considering differentiated regulatory framework for type 1 NBFCs, which are without public funds and non-customer facing NBFCs.
See, it is our policy to have, to as far as possible customize the rules basis the risk profile. And so it is only, in continuation of that particular policy that we have, that mention has been made in the annual report. I'll request DG in case he would like to add something more on this.
No, I think review is done as a regular process, and type 1 is one which doesn't face outside to the system. So we are having a look at the regulations. So that is an ongoing process. We are doing that. That's it.
There would be kind of new guidelines coming for this kind of NBFCs on fundraising. I mean.
No, type 1 typically doesn't have outside
Yeah.
liability.
Yeah. So is there any
it will
new?
be depending purely on the internal resource accruals from that.
Yeah, no, are there new guidelines coming for this type 1 type of NBFCs? That is
We'll
what I...
review and then see what kind of regulations.
It only means a review will be carried out.
Okay,
If at all there is a need, then we will do it.
okay.
So that's the third part of our regulation making framework that we announced. Let me, I mentioned about two important elements for those, because I answered that in Hindi. I think it is important for everyone to know and understand that we have issued a regulation making framework now. There are three critical elements in it. One, that we will do a public consultation. And when I mean a public consultation, it is not only in letter, let me assure everyone. It's not only in letter, it is also in intent. So, so that, the important stakeholders, their views, we get all important stakeholders. The second thing is that we will also do an impact to the extent possible. It may be qualitative. Every time, it may not be possible to do a quantitative impact analysis. What will be the impact thereof on the banking system, on the regulated entities, on the customers, on, all the stakeholders. That is the second element. And the third element is that we will regularly review our regulations, directions, etc., because it is dynamic. Policies have to, change with the times. And so it is only, in that context that we are going to review some of these policies related to type 1 NBFCs.
Thank you, sir. Now it will be Mr. Anup from Bloomberg.
Thanks, sir. Sir, Anup here from Bloomberg. Interesting choice of words, sir. Monetary policy is left with very little space to support growth. Does it mean that you would expect fiscal authorities to support rest of the growth and your growth aspirations that India should have? And also, even after all these measures that banks ever...
I believe in doing my work, right?
Right, sir.
And we have done, that bit. And obviously it is expected that, everyone else will be doing, their bit. So that is not something for me to say, right? It's not appropriate. I believe in doing my job, and that's what, we will continue to do.
Right, sir. Sir, one more question. If, despite everything that you have done for banks, they have ever asked for, banks really do not do the transmission, can you take actions? Or what kind of actions can you take?
See, it is... Ultimately, we have said this in our policy statement also, that monetary policy is a necessary but not a sufficient condition, right? So for monetary policy transmission to happen, there are so many other things, including demand, which has to be there, and so. It will depend on the macroeconomic conditions and the demand and the appetite and the demand for credit. Only then, it is the market forces ultimately. See, we have to leave it to market forces. We cannot start regulating that, no, you give credit or you reduce rates. No, you can't do that. It's the market. We believe that our markets are deep, credit markets. There are so many banks, there are so many NBFCs, there are alternative investment funds, now vying, for credit. There is private credit. And so the market forces will certainly, be able to push prices basis demand for credit.
Thank you, sir. Hamsani from Money Control.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Hamsani from Money Control. My question is with regard to the health of the banking system as such, sir. You mentioned in your speech earlier today that you're convinced, you remain quite confident about the health of the banking system. But there's one of the private sector banks where the auditors have recently qualified certain developments as likely to be fraud. Has that been escalated to RBI? What sort of actions you are planning to take on that? And it's been about 4 months since we saw RBI issue a statement in favor of the bank saying that deposits are healthy. What is your assessment of the picture right now, sir?
Well, normally, see, we do not comment on individual banks. As I said, system as a whole, banking system is very, very robust. And I also mentioned, that these events or episodes, I would call them, these will happen. They should not bother us too much, as long as, they are far and few between and limited. I think the bank has taken enough number of steps to put their, to improve their accounting and other practices. And on the whole, I think the bank is, doing well. I will request DG, Mr. Swaminathan, if he would like to give more details to the extent,
Sir, thank you. I think you summed up in terms of what is the current situation as far as this particular entity is concerned. You would recall that in the last MPC presser as well, we had said 2-3 things that all of them have been sort of complied with at this point in time. Number one was our priority to have that accounting done properly, accounting for all the discrepancies duly supported by both internal and external audit, and it must be accounted for in Q4 itself. So that has been accomplished by the bank already. Second, we said that forensic audit and accountability must be held so that people are held accountable, and the examination of fraud has to be completed, and law enforcement should take over from there. So that has been accomplished already. And third, of course, our priority is always to ensure that no customer is put to any loss or any inconvenience. That is something which has been ensured, and there is no systemic impact arising out of these kind of episodes. And fourth, we had also said that each of these crises gives us some lessons. So we sharpen our supervisory tools and we calibrate our supervisory approach basis the lessons that we learned from this. So we are going forward. We will look for these kind of red flags so that we are in a position to anticipate them much in advance. So last, in terms of succession planning, anyway, all of you know that the board and management has been sharing with you the updates. So as Governor said, whatever that was supposed to play out over the last 3 months has been is more or less on track, and I'm sure that it should be, if not immediately, but at least very soon, it should settle down and then be back to normal. And we will keep monitoring this. Not only this, but the system as a whole.
Thank you, sir. If I can be allowed to ask one question. On the deposits front, a large part of transmission would be dependent on what banks decide on.
You are taking away someone else's time. So hold on. If your question is not taken up by someone else, then we can come back.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sirs. Next, we'll have Gopika from Mint.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Governor. You have lowered your FY26 inflation forecast to 3.7%. What would be your FY27 inflation forecast? Did you mention
6.5%? Sorry, 4.5%.
Right. So you're expecting it to go beyond 4%.
Yes.
And also on CRR, you're expecting it to be staggered from September till November.
Yes.
What if the global situation, I know you are giving a clear indication to the banks, but what if globally the environment changes, inflation shoots up? I mean, if there's some risk, how would you sort of then ensure that the CRR is?
We have enough tools. See, CRR is not the only tool for monetary policy or liquidity. You have the OMOs, you have the swaps, and you have, the VRRs and the VRRs. So if liquidity has to be managed, which we actually do not, today feel that there would be a need to reverse any of those things, we have sufficient tools to do it.
Hamsini's question on the private sector lender, how will RBI ensure accountability from the board? So far, we've not seen any action at that level. But don't you think the board is also responsible for what has happened?
See, individual, so you are talking about the IndusInd Bank, etc. I think, see, the MD CEO, has resigned, and it says, for taking, moral responsibilities. So I thought, that should be good enough. Do you expect that all the board members? I mean, what are you hinting at? I think the MD CEO, who's also a member of the board, if he has taken responsibility, that is at the board level itself.
So, sorry for interruption. Just even SEBI has now issued an interim order saying that there is some kind of insider trading which might have happened, and where the notices have been issued. Bank is claiming that fraud has happened to them. So I want to understand, sir, have they reached out to you particularly, because they mentioned in the call that they will reach out to regulator or the investigative agencies due to the fraud scenario. So, I mean, this is something which is related to one bank, but it is the system of trust.
If there are other criminal acts that have happened, then the law will take its course. Please be assured. And in case RBI has to step in and take any action, then RBI will not be failing in its duty. Let's leave it at that. Let's leave it at that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. No, please, sorry, because there are others.
Let's not be, there are other people. You've already, asked your question.
Thank you, sir.
And let's not, preempt. Let's not preempt, and let's not be speculative about it.
Right. Thank you so very much, sir. Next, we'll have Mr. Piyush from Hindu Business Line.
Good afternoon, Governor, DGs. Thanks, Puniji. Sir, on unsecured loans, you said personal loans, the stress has come down a little bit, but MFI stress continue to, be present. So, are you looking at taking any other measures to address this? Sir, there have been, couple of a payment bank had applied for a SFB license around more than 18 months ago. Then 2 SFBs have now applied for universal license. Is there any timeline, sir, as to, in all the other things, RBI has a timeline of approval. So, is there any timeline where you will, give the approval? And sir, just one clarity, this time you did not issue any statement on developmental and regulatory
3 questions you are asking me.
This is a clarification, sir. We didn't see this time.
Clarification, what do I clarify if it is not there? But I'll only say this, that we believe in actions. We don't believe only in making statements. There are already, enough work that, we have on our hands. And so, we will first, we will try to, because a lot of drafts, you are aware, a lot of drafts are like gold loans you mentioned, and there are others. Thank God you are not asking me about those. You are not asking me about those, what about those drafts? You are asking me, to give more and more and more. So, we will rather, be trying to therefore consolidate, whatever we have already put in the pipeline, what we have already, we have promised. And so, we don't have to necessarily, speak if there is nothing to be spoken, right? What are your other questions? Banks licenses, see, I don't think there is a timeline, but it does not mean that, we don't have an internal timeline. Let me assure you that work is in progress in all those applications that you have mentioned, and very soon you will find our decisions. We have already articulated a decision on one of them, which we have rejected. One of them is already rejected. If you are not aware, then, let me mention, it's already there. And the others also we will quickly discuss.
Sorry, sir, what was which application was rejected?
It's not.
It will be coming out.
It will be coming out
as a press release.
As a
very
press
shortly.
release, it will be coming out. You will know.
Today it will come out?
Can't promise, but we will try.
Sir,
do
on
it shortly.
MFI, sir, will you take any more measures? Thank you.
There are no specific regulatory measures planned for MFIs. There are none. There is something else, related to MFIs, but that is not, for this particular purpose. On the supervisory side, if you would like to add anything, on the MFI, because they have been actually recalibrating their business. We have been engaging with them, through supervision. And so, if you would like to add, on the MFI portfolio, that will, I think.
Yeah, thank you, sir. But I think that has been already articulated in the MPC statement in itself, that the entities that are predominantly in this particular segment have already identified, recalibrated their business models, stepping up upon their collection methodologies. And you've also seen a shrinkage of that portfolio on account of that because of their recalibration. So maybe over a period of time, maybe over the next couple of quarters, this should stabilize. Like the other two segments also, we saw outlier growth, we took some steps and then it moderated. So this also should going forward, but it also depend on the overall economic conditions, income level, because MFI book is to the most vulnerable segment. So that's something which we will have to bear in mind, give it a little more time for normalizing. But we'll keep watching those numbers. But as Governor said, on none of these segments, there are any regulatory actions or measures that is warranted at this point in time.
Thank you, sirs. Sir, with your permission, last three questions.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Next, I'll have Mr. Ashish Agashe from PTI.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, this is a follow-up to Piyush's question on the unsecured lending bit. So, given that, there's an explicit intent to push credit growth, so should we expect some bit of going back on the risk weights order as well of November 23? And so secondly...
Whatever had to be done has been done on that account. Whatever was there, see, prior to COVID, whatever were the risk weights, some relaxations were given during COVID, which were withdrawn, and that's all. If there is any tightening which has happened, that has also been withdrawn. So there is no more, thing on the risk weights.
And so following the Supreme Court pronouncement on the crypto matter, has there been some conversation regarding, like the RBI stance has been clear from the past itself, but given that...
There is no new development insofar as crypto is concerned. There is a committee in the government, which is looking after this. Of course, you are aware we are concerned about crypto in case, because that can hamper, financial stability and monetary policy, etc.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Doordarshan se Shama, you may please ask your question.
Namaskar, sir. So your docu-series are out and they are good. I want to know that generally RBI is known as conservative. So this idea of telling your own story, how did it come from?
I think I'll have to ask, those people, who were involved in, so maybe DG Ravi Shankar, you can throw more light on how this idea came.
Yeah, this came in the context of the RBI at 90 events that we held. As we continued holding those events, and we also held events for international, policymakers, other central banks and all that. So the feedback we got in the process of doing that was that there is a lot of scope for Reserve Bank to convey, particularly to the general public, about its functions. General public has an idea of currency, of prices and monetary policy, but we wanted to expose RBI's workings more to the general public. And in that context, we thought of this docu-series. The idea of this docu-series is to show what RBI does in a language and visually that an average person understands. Thank you.
So only one episode is out yet. So how many total episodes are there? And
there are 5 episodes. They'll come one after the other.
Okay.
Thank you, sirs. Lastly, we'll have Mr. Hitesh from Indian Express.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, in your annual report, you mentioned that one of the agenda for you would be studying monetary policy transmission. As part of it, you will be revisiting optimal level of system liquidity. So what is that liquidity level which you are looking so that transmission is effective?
So the study will look into those aspects. That's why it's there. I mean, if I knew the answer, then it would not be there in the report. The study will, go into those details as to how the liquidity should be maintained, so as to be able to transfer or translate monetary policy into the money markets and then to the credit markets.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Governor, my question's not been asked. Therefore, if I can be allowed to ask my question.
How many are left?
I haven't had an opportunity.
Only
so just
two?
one question.
Okay.
So there are three actually.
Three. Okay, we take last three.
Okay, you can.
Thank you. With respect to transmission, much of transmission will depend on how banks look at their deposit rates. And where we are today, we've not seen much of a correction on the deposits front. Banks continue to keep deposit rates higher, and because the fight for deposits is still clearly there in the system. So how do you expect this particular aspect to pan out, sir? And what sort of transmission do you expect to happen on the deposit side? How soon you expect that to happen for the lending rates also to recalibrate?
I think this question was already asked and I already answered it also. But I'll still repeat it. See, 27 against 25 basis points cut that we did in February, there is a lag, you are aware. It will not happen overnight. On the asset side, about 45% of our loan book is linked to external benchmarks, which gets immediately transferred. But on the deposit side, there is no such mechanism. Despite that, and so there is a lag. So we need to understand, as I already mentioned, that there is a lag. Despite that, 27 basis points, it has already, transferred on the deposit side against 25 basis points. Ultimately, you see, the other thing I mentioned is, certainly, this will have an impact. It will be with a lag. It will happen. This is what we have seen over the past two cycles of both, tightening and easing, that it happens. It happens with a lag of 6 to 9 months. And it will happen, even this time around.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll request Mr. Laltendu Mishra from the Hindu. Sir, you want
If I may, sir, since you had asked earlier to...
There are two more questions.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Mr. Laltendu, you may please ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, we fought a war with Pakistan last month. There is a ceasefire right now. Was there an impact on the economy during this period or after that? Because now both sides have also hardened stance. We are going around the world telling our point of views. And secondly, about COVID, there is some rise in COVID cases. Is there a matter of concern there, sir? Thank you.
COVID is not a matter of concern as of now. I think it has become one of the viruses. Hopefully, it should stay like that. The conflict that we had was, or a skirmish or whatever, you may call it, that had a very, very limited, negligible impact on economic activity. Yes, it did have some impact for those days, especially in northern India, airports being closed, air passenger traffic, did certainly, decrease. But there was no major supply chain disruption, etc. So it does not have any impact, on economic activity, growth, inflation. A few days, the prices in those regions, those sectors had gone up, but it's all normalized. It does not have any major impact on the economy.
Thank you, sir. And lastly, Mr. Aryan from the Informist.
Thank you, sir. This is Aryan from Informist. This question actually is for the Governor as well as for DG Shankar and Gupta. The steeper yield curve has shown to deter rate cut transmission to corporates in the past.
What has deterred?
A steeper yield curve, sir. Now, today is the MPC actions today and the RBI's actions today have steepened this yield curve further. So are there any steps to curb this? And then secondly, in terms of the liquidity management framework, there have been some discussions in the market. Any timeline on a draft for that coming up, sir? Thank you.
See, liquidity management framework, there is no timeline that we have, but of course we would like to do it as early as possible. These are intricate matters which need to be understood in detail, because actually in our country the money market is not kind of unified. There are 3 different markets. The participants are different, collateral and non-collateral. So from a transmission perspective, therefore, we need to understand these issues deeper. We have been examining this issue, and I cannot give you a time frame really on this. First, on the yield curves, I'll request, and you can also supplement on the liquidity management framework.
Yeah, as you know, government securities yields are affected by a lot of factors. One of those factors is monetary policy and expectations of monetary policy. And liquidity is another factor, but there are also, it depends on demand in particular sectors and so on. Typically, what you would see is that in response to monetary policy, the short end adjusts quicker than the long end. Therefore, when rates are being cut, the curve tends to steepen. When rates are being raised, the curve tends to flatten. That happens. But the market, over a period of time, these get adjusted. So like we said, we don't target any particular rates in Forex. Similarly, in government securities yields also, there are no rates. Market will find its own level. If market feels it is too steep, compared to what it should be, they would adjust that. So we would leave it to the market for such adjustments. On the liquidity, I think, what the governor said, we are looking at that. Once internal examination is over, we will come out with that framework. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. With this, we come to the close of this press conference. I'll thank the top management of Reserve Bank for answering all the questions and making it quite interactive. I thank you all for being here, and I wish you all a pleasant day.
Good morning and namaskar. The 55th meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee was held in the backdrop of an early and promising start of the monsoon season. This is of vital significance for the Indian economy. In contrast, the global backdrop remains fragile and highly fluid. The uncertainty around the global economic outlook has somewhat ebbed since the MPC met in April in the wake of temporary tariff relief and the optimism